evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I took over Eric Wilson's show. There's no Mike, there's no Ray, there's no Megan. There's definitely, most definitely no Big Guard. He is nowhere to be found because, as I counted, not one, not two, like LeBron James said, but three losses in a row for the San Francisco 49ers. Get them out of here, them frauds. We're talking about the Miami Dolphins. We're talking all things Miami Heat, all things Baltimore Orioles, all things everything I want to talk about. Who knew that the Atlanta Falcons would pull Desmond Ritter? I said that a week ago. I knew it. I knew they had to do it in order to save their season. Who knew Will Levis would be the guy in Tennessee? I said it right before yesterday's games. Who knew about all this? The Eagles again look like frauds 2 times versus the Washington Commanders. They look like frauds. I looked up the stats once. I mean, Jalen Hurts, probably in this system, I might take Carson Wentz if I gave him these weapons, this line, this system in 2023. I might take Carson Wentz over Jalen Hurts.
Okay. All
He
right.
might
No,
be
no,
a
no, no,
better
no, 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 no,
at.
no, 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 no. I am not. I am not
Did I
gonna
say?
let you.
Did I go step over a
I'm not
line?
gonna let you come on the sports arena on a Monday night on a show that I have been honored and privileged and blessed with to not only be a part of, but be the man behind the scenes running the show from time to time, along with such greats as the sports reporter without pay. My man, he's a Sun Devil, Jerry. And even though we're not friends this week, my brother, 18 years, Mike Caratonito, and even you, John Shear, from time to time. But see, when you get moments like this, see, John, when you do stuff like this is why December 24th, when it is the Miami Dolphins facing the Dallas Cowboys, John, each week you keep getting closer and closer to me coming out my mouth and saying, I will do what I have not done in years. Because you run your lips. Last week I let you go and talk about your Miami Dolphins and we were at 60%, and it's not easy for another man to fill a spot when you don't have your two starting corners and an offensive line, but you got beat, but Philly didn't look good. But at the end of the day, a W is a W. I'm getting sick and tired of people, specifically the John Shears of the world. See, I knew you were the president of the Tua Tagovailoa fan club, but see now, John, you got a whole group surrounding you, man. And I'm like, where did these people come from? They came from every which way and twice on Sunday. They believe in you. And see, what they're doing right now is they're feeding your ego. So let me remind you of something, John. At the end of the day, it ain't got to be pretty. It ain't even got to be finesse. But as long as the job is done and the W is what your team is the one that is receiving, that's all that matters. We can sit here and say in the moment how things look. But when we get to February, when we get to Las Vegas, when we get to the Super Bowl, I can tell you this much, my friend. There are teams that right now we expect to be there. There are teams right now who are coming out of the woodwork and beginning to get their momentum, who might carry them into an AFC or NFC championship game. But please believe me when I say this to you. As long as Philly does the two things that I have asked them to do since last season, that is be consistent and beat the Cowboys, we will be back in the playoffs. We will make a journey to hopefully another NFC championship game. And by all stretch of the imagination, with the addition of Julio Jones, with the trades that Howie Roseman is making day in and day out, you want to talk Jerry Maguire, I might call Howie Roseman Jerry Maguire 2.0. Because, damn it, he bringing them all to Philly, okay? And John, I want to leave this last point with you before, Mike, I give you your moment. I truly want Miami. You don't understand. See, before, I don't care who the AFC representative is. I really don't. I don't care if it's Baltimore. Don't care if it's Cincinnati. Don't care if it's Kansas City. Hell, it could be the Chargers. But you know what, right now, John? I want Miami. I want a Philadelphia Miami Super Bowl. The only thing that might make me a little bit happier, and might perk your ears up because I'm giving you a late birthday, early Christmas present, I would be this close to cheering for that team that I can't stand if it came down to Miami versus Dallas,
To
only
be
to see your
fair,
face have to live with the year of knowing that your team finally got there and still couldn't get it done.
The only reason you say that is because Dallas poses no threat to you to win the division. So that's why you say that. Because
all right, that's it. I'm not taking that junk from John. First of all, I was going to take the medium hanging fruit and say that my who knew I knew Eric was going to be CeeDee Lamb is a number one. And I thought he was a number one when Amari Cooper was there. And I know you have your differences with Amari Cooper, but that's the thing. My who knew I knew actually is going to be John spitting that junk. And once again, not admitting that, hey, the Fieri offense looked great yesterday against the Patriots. I liked it. I thought the Patriots could go down to Miami, pull a little bit of an upset. I was the only one that took them, but I figure I'll take the loss if so. But it wasn't a crazy blowout. But here's the thing. Everybody last night, Eric, saying, oh, the Eagles, this and that, and passing the ball. There's like 3 guys that I've heard, and maybe more have said it, but I'm just saying in the stuff that I've heard. My who knew I knew is that, yes, the Eagles can win any way they want. A.J. Brown wants, Jalen Hurts to throw him the ball. The conversation they're having on the sideline, people say, oh, A.J. Brown was yelling. A.J. Brown wasn't yelling. They're talking. A.J. Brown's a little frustrated. He's trying to see what Jalen Hurts is seeing, trying to get on the same page. That catch yesterday made me want to vomit, but that was a sick touchdown catch. Yeah, that's weird. That was coming. First, it was going to be Ryan Tannehill for president. But that being said, look, if you can run the ball and win, who cares? I'm so sick of people calling it ugly. Like, if you can play defense and win. Now, for some reason, Eric, this is kind of part of my who knew I knew. I didn't realize that against Washington for whatever division, I do understand, but come on, man, their defense should be flexing. I didn't realize that the Giants could out defense the Eagles when it came to Washington. That's all I'm saying.
For some reason,
it makes you laugh. Exactly. It still baffles
I don't know
me.
why Washington has Philly's number. I don't understand it.
Right.
Last season and both
Eric,
times this year.
And Eric, we've talked about this in hoops too, because sometimes there's just bad matchups for teams. I mean, going all the way back, when you and I were talking in LA, like in the 90s, it wasn't like Michael Jordan and the Bulls, like they struggled, like, yeah, with the Knicks of physical teams, but like sometimes, I mean, they'd be playing somebody like the Nets, and just the Nets had that matchup, or even for your Sixers. Like I remember watching Sixers games against like terrible back then, like terrible. And granted, they only played them twice, but like somebody like Denver or somebody like, I want to say Atlanta, because if Atlanta was struggling, but somebody like a Milwaukee who was struggling. I just remember seeing certain games. I'm like, I don't understand in a season series.
Fights. That's the
right. Why
answer I can give you. Styles make fights, and
yeah,
it really
exactly.
And what it is, it's one of those things where, and I think to kind of piggyback off that, Mike, when we look at certain matchups, and we're going to talk about one in my who knew I knew, it's just something about that. Kansas City. Why does Kansas City always struggle in the Meadowlands? Doesn't matter who the quarterback is for either team. Doesn't matter who the defense is for either team. For some reason, Kansas City, when they come to the Meadowlands, whether it be against the Giants or the Jets, doesn't matter. They struggle, Just like yesterday, Denver, Kansas City. As bad as Denver has been, we all just anticipated that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Pacheco and that defense led by Steve Spagnuolo was going to beat up on Russell Wilson. And what happened?
The Denver defense beat up on the Kansas City offense.
Exactly. It was the exact opposite.
Right.
Listen, my who knew I knew was Carolina, and I'll share the stage with my brother John Shear because he and I were the only two to pick Carolina. But I'm basing it because but here's my basing off, John, and I would like to hear you on this.
Yeah.
My thing is this: Carolina, we knew they desperately needed a win, but I think more importantly than that, Bryce Young needed to remind people why he was the number 1 pick and CJ Stroud was number 2. So he was going to do whatever it took, especially with Houston coming into Carolina. It was one of those things where he played with a little extra for that game. I don't know what the rest of the season is going to look like, but I knew when I saw that matchup, I said, there is no way on God's green earth Bryce Young is going to let CJ Stroud, who is having some success, come into his house, come into his jungle gym, come into his playground, come into his house, put his feet up on his couch, eat his mama's cooking, and then leave Bryce Young to do all the dishes and say, see ya, I'm out. That wasn't happening. So
No, I thought the same thing. I've noticed this, and we haven't really mentioned it. CJ Stroud's been struggling the past couple weeks. He's come back down to earth. That whole offense has come back down to earth, and the Panthers have played good football. I mean, against Miami, they were up 14-0. They got out to a nice start. So, like, the Panthers have been playing better football as of late. Hasn't resulted in wins necessarily, but you've seen they've gotten better and better little by little each week. And I thought at home, winless, this is a team that's going to come out and they're going to get that first win. I just had that feeling. It was perfect. It was a perfect setup for the Panthers to get their first win. And the only reason I think they don't put up points is there's nobody else that Bryce Young can trust besides Adam Thielen. There's nobody else. I
why
watched
not
that game.
give? I mean, why is
Nobody
he
else.
not giving the rock to Miles? Let Miles.
Because
run
Miles
the
has been
ball.
awful. He's one of the worst running backs in the league this year.
Well, yeah, but he's banged up.
Chuba's been great.
Chuba Hubbard came in, and I mean, he's been good. But I will say this about Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. I mean, there was a lot of people that were split on it. I mean, C.J. Stroud had the size before the draft. We all heard, Eric. We were talking about Bryce Young. Is he small? He got to hide behind that Alabama line and stuff like that. Which again, I mean, he was scrambling at times for his life in some games last year. Not a ton, but I mean, he did have to move and make plays. But, John, I mean, the only pushback I have on C.J. Stroud, I mean, coming down to earth, I mean, to me, he has been the more consistent of the two. I mean, he has 9 touchdowns, which, again, isn't a ton.
But the past couple games,
he only has 9 touchdowns. It isn't a ton. But the young man's only thrown 1 pick. And, I hate saying that, John, because Eric knows why I hate saying that, because of where he played damn college football. But I'm just saying, like, I mean, the pushback is, like, on both of them. I think that, the story came out I mean, and you guys may have saw it earlier. I was cracking up on like Friday night, Saturday morning, guys, because like about how Frank Reich, it was like, oh, Frank Reich really wanted CJ Stroud. It's like the owner pushed back, and that story comes out.
That's exactly what happened.
True or not, like I said, I mean, look, we all know, Eric, you and I have been in those rooms. Somebody just asked a question, and because it was asked to a head coach, like if we're asking John a question or he's a GM, like, oh, now it's a rumor. Well, no, the question was just asked. Doesn't mean he can answer it or not. What's he going to say? I mean, He's not. I mean, look, Brian Flores, and I'm not picking on the Dolphins. I'm saying Brian Flores was the only one on the way out that said he wanted Justin Herbert instead of Tua. Now, the first 2 years, not too many people would argue with that. What Tua has done and proved it so far, okay, fine. But I'm just saying the first 2 years,
coaching matters. Coaching matters.
Well, hey, whoa! You're actually agreeing with our Queen of Hoop, Megan Price, and saying that coaching matters. Okay.
I mean,
keep that same energy, John. Keep that same energy. Let's keep it moving, gents. So we did find out yesterday, and I got into a very spirited debate with an individual who thought I was taking things personal. I actually sent him an invite to be a part of the show tonight to have this conversation. Clearly, he is not here, and that's fine. But Kirk Cousins is out for the season. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on this, and then I will gladly respond and give you my opinion on this. But Mike, right back to you. Kirk Cousins out for the season. What does this mean for Minnesota, a team that everybody that I've heard say the team was starting to get back on track, and now this happens?
Look, I mean, they were, as much as we kid around, and yes, we do know you're not a fan of Kirk Cousins, and again, obviously, personal, not that you would ever be rooting for injury. I don't know your conversation with the person, but I'm just saying I know that's not a part of it. But yeah, I mean, to have 18 touchdowns and 1 interception, and I mean, Ty's been saying it to us since last year. I mean, even when we're going back and forth with Carr and Cousins, he's saying Cousins is even doing better than Carr. And look, I mean, if the guys in the locker room love him, that's all that inevitably matters, and if he can play. But yeah, I mean, I do think that him coming around. I mean, look, the fact that Justin Jefferson's out, and you get a crazy Monday night win against the Niners, which is just huge, which nobody would have thought, Eric. The Niners without, Debo, but still the Niners with what they have and that defense without a Justin Jefferson, there's no way you think they're going to get a win. And I mean, Kirk Cousins last year, yes, we all said they are on the positive bouncing of the ball side of those 1-score games, and they won a ton of them. But he still had a solid year, and now 18 touchdowns to just 1 pick. They got behind the 8 ball. They're going to be chasing Detroit. Yes, they still have both games in front of them. But, yeah, I mean, Eric, I'll just leave it on this. With him out, I mean, seeing what John says, I mean, no Dalvin Cook, as we know, gone. And everybody's saying Minnesota's running game is worse. And I know Ray Little say, it's not the same, and I get it. But same thing like with your Eagles. If you can run the ball and win, I don't care, because that means, guess what? Your offense is sitting on the bench while my offense is just taking their time trucking down the field on your defense. So no Dalvin Cook, obviously, this season. Justin Jefferson goes down, and they're going to take their time with him because, John, why would you rush somebody like that back?
Yeah, it would be stupid.
Especially on a hamstring, right?
Yeah.
And then now you have no Kirk Cousins. Will they trade for a backup quarterback? I mean, Colt McCoy was thrown around because his familiarity with O'Connell. You guys have heard all the names. They're saying maybe Jameis Winston comes there. Bring Teddy Bridgewater back, because we know in a stretch, Teddy Bridgewater can still win you 3 or 4 or 5 games. I'm not saying for a whole season, John, but hey, as a backup,
for half the season, John, you got to look at that though. For half the season,
no.
So
No
I mean,
okay.
look, but they
Give me
can't
your
run the
thoughts.
ball. So yeah, I think this definitely dooms them. And I also, before you go to John, I just don't think they're going to do anything crazy at the trade deadline to kind of mortgage the future. I think that's crazy.
All right, John, give me your thoughts on it, sir.
Yeah, so that doesn't make sense to go out and get a guy that gets you 3 or 4 wins, because guess what that does, Mike? That puts you in a position where you win about 7, 8 games. And
Right.
that is the absolute worst spot to be in the NFL. You're not bad enough for a top pick, but you're not good enough to make the playoffs. So you
Right.
pick about 15th. It's the absolute worst spot, Mike, you can be in as a
Right.
team. You're in the middle of nowhere. You're in purgatory. You don't want to be there. So either you go out and get a guy that's proven himself in this league, a la a Carson Wentz, because 2 years ago, if you look at his stats, what he did in Indianapolis, he was pretty damn good aside from that Jacksonville game where they didn't make the playoffs down in Jacksonville. They lost. It was ugly. But if you don't go out and pick up a guy like that, because you're not going to trade, you're not going to give up assets for half a season when you weren't going to win a championship anyway with Kirk Cousins. So you're not going to win with Josh Dobbs or Winston or whatever. So you just ride it out. I think the big thing is with a torn Achilles, I don't know what the recovery is, but an aging quarterback and Justin Jefferson, I mean, I don't know if he resigns when there's no stability at quarterback. And he's a free agent after next year. They can, of course, franchise tag him. But then you get into that whole Jonathan Taylor mess. You get into all that type of stuff, the Le'Veon Bell stuff, get into all that mess. So, I mean, you might lose Justin Jefferson because with Kirk Cousins out and you don't know what he's going to be. We've seen guys not really be themselves after torn Achilles. I think for the Vikings, it's time. Like this is almost like a blessing in disguise where you were trying to put Band-Aids on what the franchise is, trying to keep them afloat, but the franchise was never going to win a championship with the roster that you have currently constructed. They were never going to win one last year. They overachieved going 11-0 in 1-score games. This year, I mean, even if they made the playoffs, like it's not a championship roster.
John, I don't disagree with that, but if they would have ran the ball against the Giants, I'm not saying the Eagles or the Niners weren't better, but if you run the ball, you still give yourself that chance, and they had the running back to do it.
Mike, you have no chance when Daniel Jones has one 300-yard game the whole year, and guess who it was against? The Vikings in the playoffs.
I get that.
Like,
and they have Saquon Barkley. I'm saying they feature. Yeah, Daniel Jones ran it in, and we don't have to relive that game. I get what you're saying, John. I'm just saying if they change their game plan a little bit, because again, pass happy, and this is where we always go back and forth with Ray. Like, do they deserve the money? And I get what you're saying. Like, do you want to dump money into that? When you have a guy like Dalvin Cook, if you feed him, it made Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying that. Obviously, I'm not saying Justin Jefferson's injuries because Dalvin Cook's not there. Hamstring's a hamstring. But what I'm saying is, like, in those 1-score games, how many times, and I mean, I didn't go back and look at their film game by game, but I was a nerd watching NFL Network. You could see how many times, like, Justin Jefferson in play action situations was just crazy wide open. So, again, yeah, coulda, shoulda, woulda, if the whole thing with the Giants. But that's what I'm saying.
My point is, Mike, is the roster was never – last year was never good enough to win a championship. This year's not good enough to win a championship.
Okay, you know what? I'll give you defensively. I'll give you one of my answers. Defensively,
the roster,
offensively, they could have won a championship.
Like if you went up against Phil, if you put that roster against Philly or San Fran last year in the playoffs, they would have got ran right out of the building. They gave up 300 to Daniel Jones in the playoffs. What do you think Philly or
Right,
San
but
Fran would
Justin
have done?
Jefferson would have gotten his in those games too.
Really? Against that Philly defense last year? Against that San Fran defense last year? Hell no.
Well, listen,
Eric,
we
Like,
can sit here and speculate what could or
but
could not
that's
have
my
been,
point.
but
Is the roster's just
I'm
not
focused
good enough.
on the here and now. And John, I like what you brought up. So let me address my situation really quick, and then I will come back to you two gentlemen. So as we all know, yes, as Mike likes to joke with me and say, I am the president of the Kirk Cousins fan club, which truly I'm not. But see, everybody seems to think that there is some type of personal negativity or some personal hatred that I have for Kirk Cousins. It's not that at all. My issue with Kirk Cousins is this, and I have it right here. Since 2015, his last year, his second to last, no, 3 years with the Commanders till now, Kirk Cousins has averaged, all right, this is an average, about 4,000 yards, if not maybe more. His touchdown to interception ratio is great. His quarterback rating, his lowest was a 92.5, and that was last year. Every other year, it's been 93, 97, 99, 103, 105, 107, 101. You know what I mean? So here is my issue that I've had with Kirk Cousins. Because everybody likes to jump on me or why you don't like Kirk because he did the whole you like that thing. It's not about that. It's about the fact that you got all this guaranteed money. That's first and foremost. And you ain't got nothing to show for it. If we go back and look from 2015 till now, I'm willing to bet you that the quarterbacks who had progressed in the postseason, and even maybe to the quarterbacks who were representatives in the Super Bowl, probably if you go back and look at their stats, they didn't have as good a passer rating or a touchdown interception ratio. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But my point is, Kirk Cousins was always in the conversation. How you always going to be in the conversation, but you ain't never the one to actually be the conversation? It's like always a bridesmaid, never a bride. And that's my thing with Kirk Cousins. This was a man who, when you left Washington and went to Minnesota, you went there because you were the missing piece. Minnesota Vikings right now should have, from 2018 to 2022, they should have been the team that was represented in the Super Bowl at least one time, based on Kirk Cousins' ability to not only throw the ball, to see the field, but to be able to pick apart defenses. But when you let, as John so eloquently put, when you let Daniel Jones, the man who needed that game against Minnesota to get a 4-year, $160 million contract, come on now.
Now, can I say something
Please.
to add on to that?
Go ahead.
So to kind of finish off my point, and I said this over and over during the draft, and this is kind of the Vikings front office doesn't really, they're not in that mindset of maybe we should tank, maybe we should tear it down. Like, they didn't go and try and fix a defense with their first round pick. They went and said, hey, sure, let's go add more offense because offense was our problem last year. Scored a ton of points. Let's score more points. No, your defense was horrendous. And what do you do with your first round pick? Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing against Jordan Addison because I like him as a player. I think he's been a really good player. But there's a reason why the Patriots were good for so long. It's because Bill Belichick took the right player. It wasn't about, oh, well, you need to take this. He always took the right player. The Vikings needed
receivers, John.
The Vikings needed, yeah. The Vikings needed to take the right player. You could have went out and got yourself a franchise cornerback in Joey Porter Jr. But what do? You settle. Now, again, nothing against Addison, but when your defense is horrendous and you're giving up a 300-yard game in the playoffs against Daniel Jones of all people, like the first thing you should have done is defense. Defense. It's the only thing you should focus on. They didn't, and that tells me that this organization has no direction.
Oh.
And that's why I think they should tear it down, because the direction is kind of like, it's kind of all over the place, Eric. There's no one direction you could say, yeah, they're going this way or that way. It's all over the map, and that's why I think they should just start over. Kirk Cousins thing again, blessing in disguise, because maybe it forces them to start over.
All right.
And that's okay. It happens every team eventually.
And you know what? That's fair. What I will say to you though is I am just when people always like to get on me about why I don't like Kirk Cousins, I'm like, you find me another quarterback who has the numbers that he has, yet hasn't seen an NFC championship game since, well, he hasn't seen one. Because in 2017, the year that Philly won the Super Bowl, 2017-2018 season,
That was Keenum.
Case
that was
Keenum.
Case Keenum.
Yeah, the Minneapolis Miracle.
Yeah, exactly. So, speaking of teams that we have question marks about, and John alluded to it when he started off the show, which remind me never to let John do that again, Mike, because he just
Oh, you were
decided
2 minutes late.
I
Sorry,
was.
I know. I
just
got
figured
off.
take
I got off a late
advantage.
Zoom about my show.
No, it's
told
all
him
good. Listen, sometimes we're gonna be late. John takes over. This is what happens. That mistake won't happen for a while. But what's going on with San Francisco? This is a team that 3 weeks ago everybody was like they're the top team in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilkes, led by Brock Purdy and Debo Samuel, and ASU's Brandon Ayuk with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. And then on the defensive side, Steve Wilkes is just continuing on from what Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans was doing. 3 losses in a row? When this brother Brock Purdy was undefeated in the regular season. And I figured, okay, listen, you lost one. Everybody's going to lose one at some point. All the greats have done it. When you lost 2 in a row, I was thinking to myself, well, okay, y'all going to figure it out. I did not. I expected more. And granted, I know the game, though, it doesn't always dictate the final outcome. But something I saw yesterday against that Cincinnati team, and I was just like, maybe this is why Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? I'm beginning to notice those little things. Mike, I'm not saying that's who he is. I'm just saying it's the eye test. And in the moment, I have to look at it and say, I still believe in San Francisco, but I'm beginning to have small question marks with regards to Brock Purdy. He rode that high, man. He came back after injury in the NFC Championship game, and he said, no, I'm playing with a bigger chip on my shoulder. I am going to be the guy that San Francisco believes in. And he started out great, but now he's got 3 losses, and sometimes it's more difficult to come back when you dig yourself that hole.
I mean, I agree. But you know me about the whole overreaction thing. I mean, after week 1, it's always fun to say things. And after week 3 and 4, you're like, okay. And then by midseason, you can see teams and you're like, okay, we know what they are. And all of us pick Kansas City, and Denver says, here's a middle finger for everybody. Here's our defense. But the thing with Brock Purdy, to tie to that, like, look, I mean, if Kyle Shanahan, I'm not saying obviously it's, scripture, but if Kyle Shanahan sees it and I know there are Niners fans. I saw on some boards like, oh man, how can you clear concussion protocol this quick? And, but if he can take the snaps, he will. I mean, it's not like he had the 2 interceptions were bad, but you look at it, 22 at 31, 365 yards, the touchdown. But yeah, the 2 picks. And I mean, the second pick came, at a bad time. And look, it's not an excuse. I mean, yes, it's always fair to question, but I mean, when I take to your point, like you say, the whole body of work. So I'm not going to get as high as the highs with the undefeated. Like, okay, he's going to win every regular season game ever. No, but 3 in a row, yeah, a little shocking. The Bengals coming off a bye, and what we talked about. I mean, Joe Burrow only missed on 4 passes yesterday. So yeah, maybe we were right, Eric. Maybe Cincinnati should hire us as freaking consultants. Because we're like, and not that John didn't say it either, but sit them out till the bye. They still would have had the same record, in my opinion. I'm sorry.
So let me ask you this, Mike. Let me ask you this. All right. So San Fran, they beat Pittsburgh, bad team. Rams, bad team. Giants, bad team. Arizona, bad team. Dallas, they have their number. I'm not going to dog on Dallas, but they have Dallas's number. Like you said earlier, some teams have teams' number. So you beat Pittsburgh, Rams, Giants, Arizona, and you have Dallas's number. They've beaten besides Dallas, who should be a really good team.
You and I are going to disagree on Pittsburgh, and I'll just leave it at that because Pittsburgh's not a bad team.
They're not even
like
in
a bad team.
Same stride.
They might not have the overall talent, but when you have arguably the best defensive lineman in the game that can wreck a game by himself, I'm not going to say they're a bad team.
But anyway, they've really played nobody besides Dallas. Then they played Cleveland. PJ Walker, that you should beat PJ Walker.
And that
Then
was
go
a
to
chip shot
Minnesota.
field goal, which could have went. I mean, listen,
Right,
and-
but
if the
and
wind
I'm
blew
saying-
the other way,
but
that
John-
they could have been
But-
still undefeated at that point.
But I'm
hold
saying,
on. But this whole thing of nobody. Like, first of all,
who did you beat
in the NFL, in Cleveland,
besides
first of all,
Dallas?
first of all, in Cleveland defensively played a lot better than Dallas did, which is Eric knows it disgusts me to say, but I love Cleveland's defense. So Pittsburgh, again, not a bad team. The Niners, yeah, first game of the year, everybody's like, okay, what are we going to see? Great. Besides a lot of penalties, which we know because the first 2 weeks of the season are the most highly penalized games of the year.
Maybe
you know,
they're
if you
just not
stick
as
with it
good
here or
as
there.
we think, Mike.
But okay, I'm not saying I just said to you talent-wise, but I'm not going to call them a bad team. They're coached up.
Maybe
Jacksonville
San Fran's not
didn't
as good
dominate them.
as we think.
Jacksonville won the game, didn't dominate them. But as for the Niners, I'm just saying, like, you beat what's in front of you. And this is the problem. And I'm not saying you did it, John, but Eric knows how I feel about this. When the Patriots were on their roll, even though they didn't go to a Super Bowl for years, yeah, they were in the playoffs. And, Mike Shanahan had Belichick's number a few times. And, Denver went to the AFC Championship game. But, yeah, they were there. And then the two that they were in, they got smacked by the Giants.
Both
So it's like, but no, if the Patriots played nobody, it's like the whole college football thing. I don't say a team is nobody. We all know when Alabama's playing, 7 different directional schools from Georgia the week before Auburn, like the starters can match. You see talent. I mean, the talent in college football in general has grown, and you can see it. But where they get killed, John, is the depth. So yes, you want to say the Niners have more depth than the Steelers. 100% with you on that one. You want to say offensively they have more depth when PJ Walker's playing quarterback than Cleveland? 100%. But what I'm just going to say, I'm not going to overreact to Eric's point. Yeah, yes, it is eye-opening. Brock Purdy knows better than to throw that. Do I think he came back too fast? I mean, maybe, but if he cleared the protocols in it, but John, an independent doctor has to do that. Those doctors are not on the payroll anymore.
Mike, before this week, can you count on one hand how many players come back? They got a concussion, and then played the next week.
No, I know.
Do you know how many?
Back the fastest.
0.
On a short week. Right.
0
on a short week.
players.
But I'm saying, John, those doctors don't work for the team. The independent doctors have to clear them.
No, I understand that.
So,
but 0 players have done it this season.
Right, but
He's
I mean, 20, what did I say? 22 or 32? What was he? He was 22 or 31. So it's like, again, I see what you're saying. And yes, McCaffrey, of course, did McCaffrey things. So yeah, does it help Brock Purdy in a way to answer Eric's question? Like saying, okay, do I think he's, truly Mr. Irrelevant and it's all smoke and mirrors? No, because he was, I mean.
I didn't say it was smoke.
No, I know. McCaffrey came over, but it's like, yeah, he had to grow with that. He has to understand, but he's got a guy like, obviously, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, even
when you have the weapons
Jennings,
in place.
even Jennings, the fourth receiver.
Right. When you have the weapons in place.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, he plays, but he's getting the ball there.
To be
but to answer your question, Eric, he's making those plays.
I get it. And John, to your point, you're absolutely right. The reason why I asked this question and I have concerns is simply this. The last 3 weeks that they have lost, okay? They lost to Cleveland by 2 points. They lost to the Vikings by 5 points. They lost to the Bengals by 14 points. If they were all within a touchdown score, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But the fact that each week your losses are getting more and more to where the other team is dominating you when you're supposed to be the dominant team in the entire NFL, as constructed and as said by other media pundits and outlets everywhere. And it's like, but now look at them.
And where I can agree with John, Eric, is Minnesota's defense is terrible. So even without Debo, which is a big loss, we all know that.
And Trent
even without Debo, yes, they had those interceptions can't happen. Like
they put up 17 points.
Right. And that's
in
my
each
point.
of their last 3 games.
That's Minnesota getting better or not.
Basically, what you're saying is to Jacksonville, to Tampa after their bye week, and to the Seahawks for the month of November. Basically, what you're saying is put up 21 and you're going to win against San Francisco.
Well, yeah, right.
But basically, if we're taking 3 weeks,
I wouldn't feast on that.
But what I'm saying to you is, if they're putting up, Mike, 17 consistently. That's been their number. 17. It's like once the San Francisco 49ers over the last 3 weeks hit 17 points, they stop.
But I looked at that too, Eric. And aside from the Tampa Bay game week 11, at Jacksonville's playing really good, and they're going to both be coming off a bye. at Seattle. Seattle's leading the division. That's going to be a really good game. At Philly the next week. You go at Seattle, then at Philly back-to-back weeks. That's really hard. Oh, and then you got to come home and play Seattle. So 4 of their next 5 games coming off that bye, besides Tampa, who's just bad.
Hey, but
those are 4 really tough games.
Agreed, but and Seattle's playing better. But let's not go crazy. Yeah, Seattle put up 24 yesterday.
I'm just saying,
but they know each other well. So for division games, I'm with you. But I'm just saying, look, for Brock Purdy, if Kyle Shanahan, again, giving him options, we'll see when Debo comes back. But yeah, to answer your question, Eric, of course, like a 3-game, not just 1 game, but a 3-game, okay, they lost to Cleveland, but both Debo and McCaffrey went out. And like you said, Eric, I mean, that field goal was pushed wide by the wind that much. Right. So and again, there's a bunch of plays that have been made. Yes, Kyle Shanahan will have to adjust, but to me, I'm not. And it's a fair question, but as for yesterday's game, when I was watching and looking in on highlights, because sorry, Eric, shameless plug, the Sun Devils took down number 3 in the country, Stanford. So in 3, so forks up, baby. Anyway, but as I'm watching the highlights, Joe Burrow, and if you guys, I mean, I'm not saying he looked like like the spring Joe Burrow, but the fact he was able to move, the fact he slid on a few plays, and I was like, oh, he didn't get drop there, he looks better as to why he should have freaking sat. But hey, whatever.
So let me ask John a question really quick. And John, you posed this, and I appreciate you doing it. So this is going to go directly to you, sir. And we talked about it. Do you feel, John Scheer, that the 49ers mishandled Purdy's injury?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to a guy coming back, the next week off of a concussion. However, when no player in the NFL has done it this year and he's the first, it makes you raise your eyebrows a little bit. And then was it the last drive of the game, he slams his head on the turf and nobody pulls him out of the game. Nobody checks on him. A guy that's less than a week removed from a concussion, he's 6 days removed from a concussion. And he slams his head on the turf and nobody comes out. Nobody checks on him. We hear nothing about it from the Niners. I mean, to me, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? Because Tua got absolutely demolished. The Dolphins, and every Dolphin fan had to live through all of that crap last year. All of it. And there's been nothing on him. Kenny Pickett had 2 concussions last year. You've had Richardson had to miss games because of his concussions this year. You've had so many guys that had to miss games. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, we played the Jets last year, and he hit his head. He didn't have a concussion, but because his head looked like it snapped back the wrong way, they took him out of the game and the neurologist or whatever wouldn't let him come back in the game. But yeah, Brock Purdy, less than a week removed from a concussion, can come back. Then he hits his head, and you don't pull him out of the game. Nobody questions it. Do you care about the player's safety at that point? Because if you're less than a week removed and you slam your head, and that's clearly like the head slamming, that's the exact definition of what you see.
Wait, John, he didn't. I thought he went into the tent after. I thought when he got to the sidelines, I thought they took him into the tent.
There was nothing.
You're positive?
They didn't pull him out. Nobody checked on him. Because he continued to play. Nobody pulled him out of the game. Right there's the spotter or somebody should pull him out of the game, and nobody did. I mean, I think rushing him back and then having this happen.
All right. Listen, this is a conversation that I know we're gonna focus on throughout the rest of the season because we're gonna watch it. No, okay. As Mike and I would say to you, John, welcome to our world, because that's the one thing Mike and I are screaming every football season.
Like, these are one of the most serious injuries. Like, this isn't rolling an ankle. This is the brain.
You're preaching to the choir, because we are standing with you, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder on this one. And all 3 of us care about player safety. This isn't about my favorite. So that's why I'm saying to you, you're preaching to everybody else who doesn't want to listen, because the 3 of us here tonight on the Sports Arena, as long as the rest of the crew, we are definitely listening. Let's take a real quick break, because I want to talk about trade deadlines. I want to talk about Major League Baseball, and then I do want to talk about WNBA. More with Mike, John, and your man, Eric Wilson. We'll be back in just a moment. Again, that is the National Scouting Combine. And just in case y'all did not tune into the show last week, we had breaking news. The dates have changed. The National Scouting Combine will go from February 19th through February 23rd in Indianapolis, just to make sure y'all are aware of that. So all the draft eligible, all the athletes, both male and female, take this opportunity because it is one that you will regret if you don't. And if you do miss it this year, don't worry. There will be one next year, but you want to make sure you get to the one this year. The entire crew from the Sports Arena, from the Sideline Sports Network, collaborating on this with these guys has been, and women, has been a tremendous time. We get a lot of fun, but we also take the time to introduce you to those diamonds in the rough, those uncut gems, and just bring you an opportunity to really get to see that next level, that next generation of talent.
And I can't wait to smoke you in the 40-yard dash.
Keep dreaming, buddy. Anyhow, trade deadline's coming up, fellas. So I'm going to give each of you an opportunity. If you could have trade deadline, and you got to be thorough with this one, all right? I want to know who you're taking, where you're sending them, and what the compensation is going to be for both teams. So I'll go first. I feel with this trade deadline coming up that John actually touched on it. I feel that Jameis Winston should get a shot in Indianapolis. I feel him being the veteran quarterback that he has ultimately become could, for the second half of this season, lead the Colts to a significant record. Not saying they're going to win the division, because right now it is Jacksonville's to have. Sorry, Tennessee, I know I got love for you. In Houston, you got some work to do, but you're making strides. I feel Indy, with the talent that they have right now, could pose a small threat. Now, could they slide in at the number 7 spot? I doubt it, but anything is possible. But I feel Jameis Winston going from the Saints to the Indianapolis Colts, so you're out of the conference, so you're not playing anybody in the division or anybody in the NFC altogether, I think is going to be beneficial for him as well as the team. Now, what does New Orleans get back? Well, I think depending on where Indianapolis falls, I think they should get the 2024 draft pick, maybe 3rd round, 6th round, and maybe a conditional 5th or 6th in 2025. And maybe if you feel that you have a person on the practice squad who you feel might be beneficial in Indy, they should also come as a package deal going to Indianapolis. So that is what I think should happen as far as the trade deadline goes. Mike, I'll go to you.
Well, I mean, since Eric's wonderful team, who is going to have to try and cover CeeDee Lamb this week, won't be able to do that, but that's a conversation for later.
I'm sorry, John. We can go to you now. It's okay. We can go to you.
What?
Go ahead.
No, okay. Just want to see if you're paying attention. No, look, I know they said it wasn't going that he's not getting traded, but John will love this since they want power. I know there's been a thing on some Cowboys boards to bring Zeke back, which of course Belichick would pillage them for, like, he'd ask for too much in picks, which isn't going to happen. But look, man, I would get on the phone, even though Jerry Jones says they don't have to call anybody, which was hilarious. I would get on the phone with Tennessee and see if you could bring Derrick Henry in so he could run over his former teammate Kevin Byard twice. But what you'd have to, I mean, logically, would you have to send back? I mean, I think it would be a 3rd this year, a third this year, a 5th this year, and a 3rd next year. Because look, where he's at in his career is still phenomenal, but for both teams to get out of it. And then, yes, I'm thinking Tennessee's probably not going to, take either one of their backup backs. I think now there's one or two, might be one or two guys that are rotating in that, in the secondary, but then you would have to cut out a draft pick. I know they said they informed he's not going anywhere. But guess what, Cortland? You and I, we all know, Eric, if somebody came in with an insane offer, like we'll give you a 1st, a 2/3, and a 4th, If they said no to that, like I'm sorry, as a GM,
Mike, what did Ted DiBiase always say? Everybody's got a price.
Right, exactly.
Everybody's got to
100%,
pay.
100%. Yeah, because if you come in with like a first, like say, like a first, 2/3 and a fourth, or a second, a third and 2/4, because you think Derrick Henry. I mean, look. I don't think they would trade him within the AFC. That's why, Eric.
You know what I would think?
I like your Jameis. Hold on, I like your Jameis Winston to Indianapolis, because I don't think you're going to trade within conference. I mean, people say, "Oh, Buffalo should get on the phone." You think Buffalo's going to mortgage, like you said? I mean, everybody's got a price on. Buffalo's not going to be like, here's 2 seconds and a 2/3 for Derrick Henry, when they know they might only just get him for the rest of this season. So they're not trading him within the AFC. But I'm just saying, as a Cowboys fan, I think you could. Look, the money and the picks are there to pull it off, John. That's all I'm saying. But to Eric's point, that's why I'm going cross conference. That's what I would like to see. But yeah, I mean, everybody's got a price, Cortland, and John's 100% right. They said it for years. If somebody and even if somebody in the AFC says, here's a first, 2/3, and a fifth next year, if you don't take that as a GM, I think it's a fireable offense.
I think agree. The highest, just side note, the highest you'll ever get Derrick Henry for a draft pick, the highest you're ever going to have to give up is a 4th round pick.
Oh,
maybe.
What?
Maybe
if you want to get him, you're going to get.
If you want to get him, John, you're going at least a 3rd.
Eric,
yeah, exactly.
Eric, yes, John.
Ask yourself, how much do GMs value running backs in this league?
But there's an exception to the rule, John, and he's the exception.
There's not. These guys. I mean, the Titans may ask for a lot, but no team's going to give up a second or a third, because
if this was other quarterbacks, I mean, other running backs, I would agree with you. But this is Derrick Henry. Come on,
I understand.
There's an exception to the rule, and he is it.
I understand, but then Eric, why wouldn't any team have gone out and done the same thing for Jonathan Taylor when he was available from the Colts?
Because Jonathan Taylor's
much younger. He's an all-pro running back.
But his health has proven to be that issue, okay? Granted, Derrick Henry had moments where he was out, but Derrick Henry has been a man amongst
I understand.
Younger men. I'm not going to call them boys because they ain't.
And I agree with you. But I'm saying, thinking from a GM's perspective, they don't value running backs anymore. So they're not valuable.
They value Derrick Henry. I think that's an insult to Derrick Henry for you to say
I'm not saying
the highest you would
that's
go
how
is
I
the 4th
feel.
round.
I'm just telling you, don't care about running backs. They'll just go get a cheap guy. They drafted Spears for a reason.
And when that cheap guy or that running back doesn't last, meanwhile, Derrick Henry is continually, successfully, consecutively rushing for yards after yards after yards and getting them yaks. Man, to me, for anybody to get Derrick Henry, you got to give up a 3rd, maybe even a 2nd.
It's just
maybe I would say a low 2nd, so somewhere in that 50 to 60 range.
At his age, with that wear and tear, and with that contract, and with
John, he is proven with the wear and tear, he's still going, man. Even with the wear and tear, he's still moving.
I'm telling you how, when the negotiation will work, that's what they're going to throw at you. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, man, Derrick Henry, if he signed, John, it's not a shock. If Derrick Henry signs another contract, it's not going to be what he signed the last one for. I get it. But to Eric's point, it's not Derrick Henry. If you can get him in and you're on that point. But Tennessee, the reason why, I mean, and with Cortland saying it, and I mean, it's been reported. I know.
Hold on.
If they look at their record, so they're not going to be crazy. I mean, you could look at Tennessee and say they're 3-4. They're not going to be crazy buyers. Hold on, but look at all the teams that are 3-4 in the AFC, and then you look at the AFC East, where it's like, okay, you have the Dolphins, you have the Bills, and then you have the Jets that are now 4-3 after that ugly thing yesterday. But if they keep Derrick Henry, and like, you know, I know Cortland was saying, yeah, Will Levis, and they wanted to see him play, and our boy Nuke showed out yesterday. Eric, he showed out. But no, you'll keep Derrick Henry because you think you could get that again, John. To your point, they could get a 6 or a 7 seed because look at what their record is. So
they're not going anywhere.
Okay, you say they're not, but
well,
they still got to play the games,
John,
right?
If they get into the postseason, just remember we got receipts. That's all I'm saying.
They're not going anywhere.
Okay, all right, well, let's transition.
All right, trade deadline. All right. So, and by the way, Cortland, Dolphins got Jalen Ramsey for basically nothing. So, yeah, stay in the comment section while I stay right here. I think the Cowboys would be, I think Danielle Hunter and the Dallas Cowboys would be perfect. I think the Dallas Cowboys give up a high pick, second or third. It's high for a guy that's a little bit older, a little bit more wear and tear. But then you ask the Vikings to eat the large amount of money, so that way the Cowboys don't have to worry about the cap space. Cowboys will give you a high pick, like a second or a third, maybe a fifth with it. Then the Cowboys, DeMarcus Lawrence isn't that good. Let's face it. Like he's a good player. He's not a great player. Mike, don't give me that face, because if you get Danielle Hunter, who is worlds better than DeMarcus Lawrence.
Oh, he's not world. Okay, you're
He's
outside.
worlds. He's a dog. And if
You
you
are.
put him on the other side of Micah Parsons, guess what that does?
Well,
It
Micah
takes
Parsons on
away-
the other side of anybody is going to be great,
No,
just like
I
Aaron Donald got
understand.
big spade. But DeMarcus Lawrence
But-
is doing what Dan Quinn wants him to do. There's a big
Now,
difference.
I understand that.
between he's not this.
Congratulations, you're a lapdog, DeMarcus Lawrence.
That's
Get
not-
out of the way.
oh my
Danielle
God.
Hunter's a
Yeah, just like
dog.
you're a lapdog to the Fieri called
He's a
the Miami
dog,
Dolphins.
And if you put that guy who is an absolute animal on the other side of Parsons, guess what it does? It
Yeah.
takes away a little bit of that pressure of losing Trayvon Diggs. It takes away a little bit of that pressure
Wow.
because your pass rush
Nothing
can
takes
get
away the
home.
pressure of losing
Your
Trayvon.
pass rush can get home without having to blitz, and it allows you to drop more guys in coverage. And that that takes away a little bit of the sting of losing Diggs, because you can rush with 4 and get home every time with Danielle Hunter and Micah Parsons, and you could drop 7, and
Micah
it makes you more
Parsons.
formidable.
Yeah,
Quit
John,
calling him
let's
Micah.
be clear.
It's
It's
Micah Parsons.
Micah.
He's a Penn
Parsons.
State
Micah,
alum.
what? I call him Micah
No,
Parsons.
no.
That's what
Well, I
it
call
is.
the Dolphins
Micah
a Fieri.
Fitzpatrick, who
Because
plays for the
Buffalo's their
Pittsburgh
daddy,
Steelers.
so we're even,
It
I
is
guess.
Micah
And I also
Parsons.
think if that trade doesn't go through, I think Dallas overpay 2 firsts. You go and get Patrick Surtain from Denver. Denver's going to have their fire sale, and you get Patrick Surtain. You fix the corner spot, put an
When did
all-pro
John
guy
become
there.
a closet Dallas fan?
I'm not.
No,
I'm
he's
a
trying
football fan.
he's trying to gouge their draft. You're not giving up 2
Look.
firsts for that when Trayvon Diggs is coming back and
Look.
he's young. No,
All I do is I look at fits,
because
and
you
I look
can't
at
pay them
guys
both.
that are being sold and where the right space is. And I think Patrick Surtain, with you missing Diggs this year, would be a perfect
Oh,
spot.
man,
And
Deron
then
Bland's
next
got 3
year,
pick sixes.
then
Deron Bland's
next
got
year,
3.
Mike,
3.
when Diggs is back and you put Surtain and Diggs together,
John,
who's
why?
throwing
Whose
them?
side you on,
Next
John?
year, but you can't
Stop
pay
trying
him.
to
I'm
help
a football-
Dallas.
I'm a football fan, and I see the fit. If you go and get overpay for
Hey,
Patrick
man, I love
Surtain,
Surtain. I love Surtain, but
I think it would be
you
a
can't pay
perfect
Micah
fit.
Parsons. You can't pay Micah Parsons. Have guys paid
You
on
know what?
offense.
That's
and then
fine.
pay
That's
Patrick
fine.
Surtain.
Pay Surtain. Let Micah come
Oh,
home.
yeah, okay.
Let Micah
Yeah,
come
yeah.
home. Come
Yeah.
on home,
He's gotta
brother.
go
So
back to
Penn State
Pennsylvania.
linebackers come to Dallas, baby.
we missed
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
All pro linebackers from Penn State, baby.
Oh. Anyhow,
No, you're saying
Can we-
him and TJ Watt. You want him
Can-
to come to Pennsylvania, right?
I
TJ Watt.
said come
Oh.
home to
Oh, to
Philadelphia.
Philly. Oh, I forgot you guys existed. I'm so sorry.
Okay, you know what? That's it. Let's keep
Of course he
moving. All right,
forgot.
really
Because
quick.
They kicked their ass. You kicked their ass.
Really quick. Let's talk some World Series because I got another topic. So World Series thoughts. John Shear, holla at me.
Oh, this is a weird World Series. This is exactly what the Diamondbacks did in 2001 when they beat the Yankees. Everything is lining up to a T to what the Diamondbacks did in 2001, and they're going to do it again. Mike's going to probably be there and watch them walk it off, win a World Series, they'll be at home and they'll walk it off bottom of the ninth or something. This has Diamondbacks winning written all over it. And Texas teams always find ways to choke. Aside from the Astros, Texas teams always find ways to choke, especially the Rangers, who years ago were 1 strike away against the Cardinals from winning a World Series, and they
John.
choked it away with Ron
John,
Washington.
you
They're
better
gonna
be
do it
praying
again.
to whoever you pray to that the Queen of Hoop is not on this show right now,
I was-
boy.
He hasn't been in
'cause
like 4
she-
weeks, so I'm
she
good.
will let you have it when it comes to her Rangers.
She's
Eric,
worried about Clay Travis. She's not worried about
I gotta
me.
say one thing real quick too is
Yeah.
with like Ketel Marte, because he extended his hit streak. So 19, he got a record. So when I was doing the radio show and I was going out to D-backs, there was a point in the season where they lost, had some injuries, and I said to Torey Lovello, we were talking on the field, just after the the pregame, he'll talk, and then I said, hey, I really didn't think about it until after you walked out, but I said, why not have, even though I know he's, a younger guy, but he's a switch hitter. So there's really no advantage, like a switch hitting leadoff hitter. I said, what about Marte? And we were talking, he goes, no, we thought, I go, look, I'm just asking. I said, I'm not telling you how to coach. I go, please. That's why I didn't want to ask it in there. I'm glad I thought of it later. I said, but he goes, no, I don't take it that way. And we're talking, he goes, Marte's going to be a guy that will win hit batting champion, that will win hitting. He'll have a batting title. If he goes, we get to the postseason, he goes, this guy's bat is just going to be everything, because he's like, you see how he works in his defense. And when he got the MVP of the NLCS, John, I was like, oh, not surprised. And I kind of went back to that conversation, like, damn, I mean, the guy, he got a little banged up, but he's been that constant. And everybody at the trade deadline, I know you saw that. Everybody, about 3 weeks out, like, oh, the Diamondbacks, they struggled. They're struggling now, so they should sell, trade Ketel Marte. Everybody wanted Ketel Marte. Maybe not everybody, John, but a lot of teams were like, we can make room for this guy. So, yeah, but just that conversation, it was cool, because he's like, this guy can win a batting title. He goes, but I'm not saying he's there right yet. So even, he goes, even if he's batting ninth, that's like your second leadoff hitter down there. You want to turn over the lineup. And he wasn't batting ninth at the time, but yeah, it was a cool conversation. So I'm stoked for Marte, and it's an interesting series. And yeah, I'm bummed the Queen of Hoop isn't out, because I was going to say, Eric, the best news for the Diamondbacks is that the Rangers had home field, because they can't win on their home field. That's the Astros.
Yeah, for real. All right, last topic of the night here on the Sports Arena. And again, thank you, John. Thank you, Mike. And, of course, our man Cortland, who has always in the comments. So this last one, and I don't even know really where to go with it, except simply to just bring it up. So there is a writer, lawyer, radio host, and television analyst, goes by the name of Clay Travis, who has said he is going to bet $1 million of his own money that his choosing of a boys' high school basketball team could beat the defending back-to-back WNBA world champion Las Vegas Aces, led by A'ja Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, and their coach, Becky Hammon. So, let me just say this, okay? As everybody knows, and if you don't, you've been living under a rock, but if this is your first time watching the Sports Arena, thank you for tuning in. I am a huge advocate for women's sports. I have been. All of us are. For Clay Travis to come out and say that a bunch of 16 and 17-year-old young men can beat some grown women in a game of basketball is simply absurd. And I mean, listen, we sit here and we joke about it and we say, oh, the team with the worst record in the NFL should take the XFL champion, whoever that is for that year, and them two play. And then whoever wins, that team goes to the NFL. The other team comes down to the XFL or the USFL or whatever league it is. We've talked and we joke about it. But the fact of the matter is that's just not the case. You know what I mean? It'd be like every year if the national champion from college football played the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on. Stop it. Cut it out.
Right.
For Clay Travis to make such absurd remarks like this and then to double down and say, I'm going to put $1 million of my own money into this, bro, I in the words of the late, great, always a brother like no other, Alex Fleming, Clay Travis, you need to be drug tested. Because if you want to give somebody $1 million for stupid sugar honey iced tea, hey, man, give us a call because we got some stuff that we could actually make you some money off that million if you want to get serious with it. But if you just want to throw money like that away, do us a favor. Hit me up. You already know I ain't a hard man to find at Eric Wilson TV. You know what I'm saying? Because the Sports Arena and Sideline Sports, we could do some damage at Super Bowl week, at NBA Finals week, at MLB World Series week, at Stanley Cup week. Let us know. You want to spend $1 million like that? Let us get it. That's I'm just gonna be real. But this is ridiculous. This is.
When I saw this, I knew we were going to talk about it, and it's like, but I just kind of want to ignore it because I told you, Eric, it's like that one time filling in on one of the afternoon shows, and I was saying Serena Williams in her prime could have beat a ton of men. I'm not saying she would have beat Federer, Djokovic or Nadal, but I mean, if she played him 10 times, could she beat him once or twice? Yeah. When she's serving as hard as they are, I mean, we all know a lot of the men's game and the women's game, the ones that have dominated, it's become about the serve. Back to the WNBA, though, I digress. Like, yeah, Cortland said it perfect. I mean, like, they're athletic, and we've had this conversation before. Now, if you want to say, like, you want to put up a high school track kid that, maybe broke the national record in the 100, or a boy, and and a woman that had run, the same time like against Sha'Carri, right? Say you want to do that. People might be like, okay, it's track, it's one thing, but basketball, it's your teammates. And I guarantee the one thing, those even though they're boys, they're going to be more intimidated by playing the Aces. Nothing to do with being women, but yeah, let Kelsey Plum hit a few in their eye hole, because you don't think they practice. Here's the thing: when people say that too, and the NFL, like you said, in college football, oh, he's joked like I couldn't stand that, Eric, because I'm like, I don't care if the Browns, and I'm not picking on Ray's team, but the Lions, whoever went 0-16, they'd still whoop the national champion. It wouldn't be even close. But you don't think they practice against bigger and stronger all the time? I mean, I've been to WNBA practices. I've been to college practices where the best coaches, and yeah, there's obviously they're going up against each other, but sometimes they will have guys come out in college basketball that are bigger. So they're used to the, shooting at length, it becoming muscle memory and challenging them. And it's like, yeah, no, it's not like a free for all where it's like a foul fest, Eric. But yeah, when I saw this, I'm just like, to me, it goes to the whole Serena Williams. I'm not saying every single person in women's tennis will be able to do it, but Serena Williams in her prime would have fared pretty well on the men's tour. I trust my eyes, and those guys were phenomenal. Like Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. Yeah, I'm not saying she would have won more than them, but she would have won something. So like, exactly. It's crazy to me. Like, yeah, I mean, you have those players like, yeah, and Cortland said it right, they're seasoned professionals. Like, they might be athletic. Some, and some are going to be stronger, because, you see some of these kids, even when they go when they used to go from high school to the NBA, come on, man, we saw skinny Kobe, Eric. We saw, like, KG was a stick, but then when KG put on muscle, you're like, oh, that's not a small guy. Even Shaq, it's hard to call Shaq skinny when you're 7'3", but we saw him coming out of LSU. Like, right. So they might be able to run a little bit, but yeah, they're going to get a few shots put in their eye hole. And it's like, but yeah, I'm with you. Clay Travis, like, give us the $1 million. We'll cover things for you. And you can stop, wasting your time talking about that, because it's ridiculous.
John, go ahead, man.
One of the things that we didn't really mention, the women are going to be able to shoot better. The guys are probably going to be, bigger, stronger, more athletic, I would imagine. But I would imagine because these women are professionals and their bodies are fully developed, whereas the high school boys' bodies aren't fully developed, because you're only a kid, you're still a kid, you're a teenager, you're not fully developed, so your lungs and everything isn't fully developed. Your conditioning probably isn't I'm not even going to say probably. Your conditioning isn't going to be what a WNBA player's conditioning is. So the course of a full game, I don't think that the boys would be able to hold up conditionally, condition-wise. I don't think they would be able to hold up, with their stamina and everything, compared to the women. I feel like the women, if you played the full game and they're wearing each other down and you get to the fourth period, I feel like the women probably they're going to be fine, and the boys probably be a little bit more gassed. That would be my guess, because they're 16, 17-year-old boys. If they have to go up and down the court against women who, don't bat an eye at being tired when they're going up and down, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
they're going to play. Here's the
thing. At some point, those scales will tip, because
and here's the thing that I also believe. I also believe that the mental piece, I think these boys are going to come in, and they are going to want to Mike D'Antoni. They're going to want to run and gun.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the Aces are like, okay, if you want to play that style, that's fine. But just remember, we understand the shot clock. We understand where we need to be. And we're going to, I started off the show saying about finesse, with Philly not playing finesse ball.
Also,
We've
basketball
seen
IQ.
what the Aces can do, and it is more mental than it is physical. You're absolutely right. And let's not forget, they got Becky Hammond. Okay? Shout out to Teresa Witherspoon, the new head coach of the Chicago Sky, real quick. I had to get that on here. Shameless plug, but come on now. This is Becky we talking about. Becky learned from one of the greatest, if not the greatest basketball coach to ever lace him up in Greg Popovich. So, cut it out, man. For real. I'm going to use a line that I know they use on your show, John. Yo, Clay Travis, you, sir, are out of order. For real.
But I mean, the basketball IQ, right? The women are going to have such high basketball IQ, like you said with Becky Hammond. Their basketball IQ is going to be so high that I don't think that the boys will be able to think on that level. Because you know what I mean. I mean, professionals are able to put themselves in that space. That high school kids, no matter how athletic and strong you are, you just don't have that IQ and the tricks of the trade of the game and things like that, the fundamentals. Like,
Yeah, but
you
John, the
just
one thing
don't
you did
have
but
that.
John, the one thing you did say is, I mean, if they're just going to try and play tempo and just get down the court, are they playing defense? Can the Aces get back? Yes, I'm not saying they can't, but they're going to try that. But I mean, again, yeah. So, I mean, I'm thinking, and he said a high school team, so just that team. He doesn't get to. He's not forming an all-star team. He's
Right.
No, he said he gets to pick the high school team. That's what he said.
Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, he gets to pick the high school. So yeah, I mean, yeah, some are. I mean, but I mean, down low, you play a high. You play a high low. Like I always laughed at that because it's. Yeah, the Aces, and to your point, Eric, if they're going run and gun, the Aces can sit there. If they're getting impatient, they can slow it down. You can move it around, and like you said, you mentioned, but you have those players on the outside that can just sit there and put it up.
Traps and stuff.
They can go down low. And another thing with sometimes, and you see it is, and people will say, "Oh, well, the refs will call fouls because it's boys versus." No, they're not going to sit there and call lane fouls. They're not going to call lane fouls, but I think a high school team would be more apt they would get them in foul trouble to John's quicker. I think they would get them in foul trouble. I
didn't even think of that.
Of course they would. All right, gentlemen, much love to both of you for being a part of the show as always. John, tomorrow night, 8:30. Make sure you check this brother out. Sideline Sports, NFL Alumni Media. This brother's doing so many things. And to my brother of 18 years, he's a Sun Devil, Jerry. Forks Up. ASU, Sun Devil, Pitchfork Lunch, Pac-12 preview. Every time I get a post from Mike Caratenuto, I already know where he's at and what he's doing. If it has to do with Arizona State University, you can damn sure bet that my man at Diablo 00, Mike Caratenuto, is in the building. Okay? Mike ain't got to say he in your city because the city is about to be his. I don't know why the mayor just has given him a key already. For all the stuff that he has done, not only for Arizona State.
Have you met Mike?
Yes.
Well,
had the man at my house.
That's
and
probably
everything.
why. I'm going to smoke you in the 40. I'm going to smoke you in the 40, and then I'm going to tackle you at the end. Keep talking there, funny guy.
All right.
I'll take the 15-yard penalty, John. I'll take it.
That's going to do it for us here tonight on the Sports Arena. Much love to the Queen of Hoop, to the Big Guard, and to the sports reporter without pay, who it looks like his Detroit Lions just had that one hiccup. There are 3 minutes and 23 seconds, as according to my clock. They are up 26-14 against the Las Vegas Raiders. So hold it down, fellas. Handle your business. And we will see y'all next Monday night for all of us at the Sports Arena. We love y'all. Peace.